So the iPhone 15 just came out with all new camera features. It's got the new telephoto lens with the prism so it can zoom extra far. It can shoot in log video format now, which is kind of crazy because it's a phone. The point is the cameras on the iPhone are great, but that's not new news. Smartphone companies have been competing to have the best cameras since pretty much they started making them. And it's gotten to the point now in the past couple of years that a lot of people can't even tell the difference between a smartphone photo and a photo taken on a professional camera, which is actually crazy. I think most people agree that it's just super impressive that you can do what you can do with a smartphone camera. They've taken a device that generally takes like 2 hands to hold, like this. This is actually a really small camera. Usually they're like twice the size of this. And they're able to pack all of that into the top corner of a phone and still get similar results. Which then kind of begs the question, why do we even shoot on anything else that's not a phone? Because they're so good anyways. It turns out there are some major trade-offs to making a camera that compact, and I'm gonna try to explain them today. And the first thing, and probably the thing that's the biggest difference in a smartphone camera, is the sensor. This is one of the biggest features of pro-level cameras and has a lot to do with why pro-level cameras are so expensive. To put it simply, in digital cameras, a sensor is a sheet of photosensitive pixels that takes in light and converts that into a digital image. Pro-level cameras have what's called a full-frame sensor, which is a 35mm sensor. More affordable cameras will usually have an APS-C sensor, which is about half the size of that. But sensors like that don't even come close to fitting in the package of a phone. So the sensor in the iPhone, for instance, is about 1/15th the size of a full-frame sensor. So logically, you'd probably think that would hurt the resolution. If the sensor is only 1/15th the size, then it makes a picture that's only 1/15th the size. But that's not quite the case. For example, the 48 megapixel sensor in the iPhone 15 actually has more pixels than the Canon R5, which is a $3,000 camera, which kind of highlights just how overkill 48 megapixels is, but I'll talk about that a different time. But in the iPhone, they actually just crammed that many more pixels into that tiny package. If they made an entire full-frame sensor with the same resolution as an iPhone sensor, it would be like 700 megapixels. But the resolution isn't the problem. The real problem that you get with a small sensor is bokeh. Bokeh is how the things that are not in focus in your image have that soft, blurry texture to them. And generally, bokeh is one of the biggest indicators of a high-quality image. People just like looking at an image when the subject is sharp in focus and the background is all blurred out. So then why do bigger sensors get better bokeh? When light goes through a lens, it's directed at the sensor in a cone shape. So when your sensor is bigger, the things that are out of focus literally have more space to spread out onto the sensor. This effect is actually so desired that some top-end movie cameras have 65mm sensors just to get more of that effect. But since smartphone sensors are so small, it has the opposite effect. The light basically has no space to spread out, and you end up getting images that have everything in focus every time, which just doesn't look quite as nice. So then the iPhone tries to work around that with things like portrait mode, but that just doesn't work quite as well. For portrait mode, your phone is taking that normal image where everything is in focus, it's separating the subject from the background, and then artificially blurring the background and keeping the subject in focus, and then throwing it all back together and giving you an image. And it's true that that does generally make your pictures look better, but at the end of the day, it's just trying to simulate the effect of a pro-level camera, and artificial editing just doesn't beat physics. Another downside of that tiny sensor is the image is actually darker than with a bigger sensor, which just ends up meaning your phone does more computer processing to brighten up the picture. But moving up from sensors, the second big weakness of smartphone cameras is lenses. One of the most important features of a pro camera is that you can switch out the lenses, because different kinds of pictures just need different kinds of lenses. If you're shooting something like a landscape or like real estate photography, you're going to want a wide angle lens that can see a lot of stuff. So you can see as much stuff as possible. You want to get everything in one frame. But if you want to shoot something like sports photography or nature photography, you're going to want a really telephoto lens. So you can get a picture that's really close to the action while you're actually somewhat far away. The way you can tell how tight or zoomed in a lens is by the focal length, which is measured in millimeters from the center of the lens to the sensor. And the bigger that number is, the more zoomed in that lens is going to be. So for instance, like a 16mm lens would be really wide, and something like a 400mm lens would be really tight. For reference, I'm shooting on a 24 to 70mm lens right now. This is 24mm. And this is what it looks like all the way zoomed in at 70mm. So now to work around that, phones usually have 2 or 3 lenses built in, all at different focal lengths. I want to say in the iPhone 15 Pro, it has a range of 12mm on the widest end to 135 On the most telephoto? That's a guess though. That might just be on the Pro Max. And I think the Samsung flagship phones zoom even farther than that. But even with that, phones aren't going to cover all of your lens needs, especially on the telephoto end. Okay, and the final thing is digital photography features. The biggest thing to note here is full manual controls. Digital cameras allow you to change all of the camera's settings to get the shot exactly the way you want it. Meaning with these, you have full control over the shutter speed, the ISO, and the aperture. As far as phones go, some are better than others at this. The iPhone is actually probably one of the worst. In the iPhone's camera app, you can't change pretty much any camera settings. All you can do is take a picture and get whatever the phone spits out. I believe Androids are a little better with pro photography mode. In that mode, they give you control of shutter speed and ISO, which is still a big step up from iPhones, but still doesn't really approach the capabilities of a digital camera. Typically, smartphone photography is going to be doing a lot of adjusting to your image to compensate for its weaknesses and to try and give you a consistently good picture. But typically to do that, it takes away a lot of your own control, and it can also give their images a feeling of just being over-processed. And even beyond manual controls, pro cameras have a lot of features that are built to give photographers as much control as possible over the images they make. Display controls like focus peaking or false color, raw file formatting for editing in post, ports for external device connectivity, SD cards, modulation. All these things give a dedicated camera a lot more functionality than the camera app on your phone. But I'm also not trying to say that smartphone cameras are useless. A smartphone is the only device where you can take a picture, edit the picture, and post the picture all in one device, which is still super useful, just useful for different things than mirrorless cameras. But do I think smartphones are going to take over digital cameras and be the only cameras in the world? No. Not anytime soon, at least. Okay, I think that was the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, probably. Feel free to comment questions you have or videos you'd like to see in the future, and I'll see you around. Peace.